This morning power call. How's everybody doing today? I'm excited to do this one. This is going to be a fun one. Sometimes I pick things that are just fun, and I think this is going to be a fun video, right? I think this will be a fun daily lesson. As far as announcements goes, we have our live copy review call on Thursday. We've got a swipe file breakdown on Friday. There's all the details are in announcements. Go check it out. If you guys aren't regularly checking announcements, you're going to miss out on some cool things because I'm constantly dropping new lessons, new videos, new live events. It's all going to be announced in announcements. So I usually tag you guys, but you should keep an eye on announcements. You go back and read everything that's been posted the last 24 hours so you don't miss out because there's a lot of good stuff coming up this week. I'm really excited for you guys to attend the copy review calls and then the swipe file review calls. It's going to be a huge opportunity for you to increase your marketing IQ. I think that's something that you should all be investing in. It's a big part of the daily checklist. And it's something I really want you guys to think about as you move forward out of the boot camp, as you finish the boot camp, as you're in the process of finding clients. You've got to develop your marketing IQ. You've got to improve it. So these live calls, and if you can't make the live calls, at least attending the record, like watching the replays that I upload inside of courses, you have to do that if you want to get the most out of your efforts reaching out to clients and landing clients and working with clients. You've got to increase your marketing IQ. That's fundamental. So let's dive in. Happy birthday to anybody out there who happens to have a birthday today. I just thought of that. So let's announce happy birthday to anybody that's watching this, and it's their birthday today on February 1st. So let's dive into why I wanted to talk with you guys about Genghis Khan's productivity secrets. Many of you know that I'm a big fan of Genghis Khan. I take a lot of inspiration from him. I think he's an interesting individual. But I want to show you guys something real quick. This is a map of the Mongol Empire this is like roughly, this might be a few years after Genghis Khan died, but this is the result of Genghis Khan's life, right? Everything in red was part of the Mongol Empire. Now you can see Mongolia is a tiny little part of it right there. It's just a tiny little like area in the middle, but it expanded out and covered a huge, huge area. China was a giant empire. Korea, a lot of the some of the Turkish Empire. He conquered Afghanistan, which no one's really done since. The Russians have tried. The United States has tried. No one's been able to do it. The British tried. It couldn't do it, right? And in a significant part of Eastern Europe as well. Massive, massive accomplishment. Now, it's interesting, right? We all know Genghis Khan's famous for being this warrior and stuff, but like, look at the scale of his achievement. That is huge. That is a huge, huge achievement. Anybody that can accomplish something so great absolutely must have some level of, he must be really good at productivity. He must be really good at getting stuff done if he was able to accomplish something at that scale in essentially one lifetime, right? That was, I think, 1279. I think that was a little after he died, but he was able to accomplish a significant amount within that time period. How did he do it? How did he accomplish so much? How did he start? Where did he come from? What lessons did he learn? I want to talk a little bit about this today because I think there's some things in here that can help you in your copywriting journey. There are things here that can help you as a young man seeking to improve yourself, seeking to become a stronger, more capable version of yourself and accomplish more, get more things done. I think there's some great lessons here. So let's talk about them. Let's go through, and I'm going to share some quotes from his life. I'll share a few stories from his life. I'll share some quotes from things that he heard growing up, things that should influence and could influence you to improve yourself and your output each and every day. So let's talk a little bit about where Genghis Khan grew up. He grew up on the steppes in Mongolia, a barren, harsh, empty land, right? Hard life. When he was hungry and he had to eat, he killed rats. Hard life, right? Talked about this yesterday on the call a little bit. We'll talk about it some more. So one of the things that he spent a lot of time listening to the wise old sages of his tribe, right? And they would talk about Cathay, which is China, right? They talk about China and why they were so successful and how they had this relationship with China, how they tried to avoid them. China was giant, rich, decadent, right? And they lived a harsh, harsh life in the cold winter of Mongolia. And one of the things that they said, one of the old guys, the wisdom of his tribal elders, was that they said, besides, monasteries and temples breed mildness of character, and it is only the warlike and barbarians who are able to conquer this world. I think he said the martial. Yeah, something along those lines. It's only the warlike and brave who are able to conquer and dominate in this world. Temples and monasteries breed mildness of character, right? And they're not really talking about literal temples. they were talking more about the decadence of that society, right? And the whole culture of Mongolia was about rejecting the decadence and embracing the difficulty, right? So many people in today's world, we live in a world where things are abundant, where things are easy, where there's cheap dopamine everywhere. And you have to reject that, right? You have to reject the cheap dopamine and embrace the difficulty and the struggle, because that's where you develop the strength of character you need to win, right? So much about what Genghis Khan was about winning. I think that's the last thing we'll talk about is his where his priorities were as far as what brought him the greatest joy in this world. From a young age, he was raised in hardship. He was raised in difficulty. He didn't really have to go far to find difficulty. Difficulty sort of because of where he was from. Many of you, though, we live in a life. You live in a life, an easy life. You need to find a way to embrace difficulty. Copywriting and working hard as a up and coming copywriter, developing your skills can be difficult. It can be made difficult. It can be approached like war. It can be approached like hard work, like absolute. You can throw yourself and put yourself into a crucible of difficulty and develop the character traits you need to win. It's huge, right? It's an extremely important step is to sort of reject decadence and instead embrace the struggle and the things that are going to make you strong. Build a strong character, build a strong capacity for competition. When Genghis Khan was young, his dad made a pact with a neighboring king, right? A neighboring king of a different tribe. And in this pact, Genghis Khan became they made a deal that like they would each take care of each other's sons. Basically, they kind of like both adopted each other's sons in case something was to happen, right? So in case Genghis Khan's dad was going to die, Genghis Khan could go to this guy and be his son. And then if this other king, I think his name was Prester John, if he died, his sons could go to Genghis Khan's dad. Genghis Khan's dad was the chieftain or the ruler of a tribe in Mongolia. And that was the deal. Well, when Genghis Khan was really young, I think he was 13. His father was murdered, killed. And Genghis Khan lived as a fugitive in the woods for years running, trying to avoid being captured. He was captured, escape capture, all that stuff. And they were poor. They were absolutely poor. They had they went from being the prince to being a vagabond, a guy that was hunted. And he had nothing. And they debated whether or not he should go and try and get this guy to fulfill his promise and go and show up and ask to be made his son. And he said something that is important, and it relates a lot to the outreach you guys do. So it's kind of not about productivity. I guess it is. So he said, to go as a beggar with empty hands is to arouse scorn, not fellowship. So he's saying, hey, if I show up on his doorstep, poor, broken, empty, with nothing valuable to bring him, I will be showing up as a beggar. And when you show up as a beggar, that's going to arouse scorn. And it's not going to arouse that feeling of fellowship, that feeling of being a peer, that feeling of being able to work together. And he's right. If you show up on someone's doorstep without any value, without only asking for something, when you're begging for something without providing any value in return, you're going to arouse scorn, not fellowship, right? So as you guys are doing your outreach, you've got to make sure that what you show up with is value. You actually show up with value. It's not just enough to tease value so much anymore. You need to actually show up and bring value right off the bat. Because to go as a beggar with empty hands is to arouse scorn, not fellowship. And he approached everything else. Like as he went forward and conquered after this, he made friends and he made more allies than he fought. I mean, he fought amazing wars and conquered and destroyed entire peoples. But there were loads of other peoples where he showed up and he led with value and they led with value and they created this feeling of fellowship and they worked together, right? He was a big time collaborator. An interesting note on that is when he was young and he and his family were running, right? He was 13, right? So he had his mom and he had a few brothers and his sisters, and they were basically living out in the middle of nowhere, trying to avoid being captured. The middle of nowhere of Mongolia, which you can only imagine how harsh of an environment that would be. The mother, famously taught a lesson to her sons. And this has a lot to do with why we have a campus here, right? His mother took she took an arrow, right? And snapped it and talked about how easy it was to snap that individual arrow. And then she took 5 or 6 arrows together and she tried to snap it and couldn't. And she passed it around to the kids. And now each of her sons try and break it. And Genghis Khan tried to break it and couldn't. And she's like, by yourself, each of you would die. But because we are together and we work together, we can win. We can't be destroyed. We have power over a single person. And it's absolutely true, right? If Genghis Khan didn't physically himself march over every single piece of territory I showed you on that big giant red map, he had his generals do it. He worked with other people. He worked and collaborated with other people. Collaboration, it was key to Genghis Khan's competitive success. It's an odd dichotomy, right? Like at the same time you are competing against other people, you have to collaborate with other people to win, right? So that's one of the things that's valuable about the campus. It's not just enough to watch the lessons and learn some things, right? Being inside the campus, having a legion, having a unit, having other students around you that you can work with is absolutely crucial for winning, right? Collaborating, gaining inspiration from other people. It's absolutely crucial. If you try and go it alone, if Genghis Khan had tried to go it alone in his early years, he would have lost. He would have never been able to conquer things. It was only through working with others. So you've got to find ways inside of the campus to collaborate, to bounce ideas off of each other, to help fill out, to help each other, answer unanswered questions. There's a strength and a power that comes from working with other people that you will not be able to replicate while you were working by yourself, right? It's one of the great keys to Genghis Khan's productivity, to his success, that you guys can steal and implement today, right? That you can go in and work inside of the campus with your fellow students, and you can use me as a resource, and together, and because you are connected with a network of other people, it's going to give you a major advantage compared to if you just try to do it by yourself, right? And that's an important lesson. All right, let's move on to the next quote. So, here we go. As a merchant trusts in his stuffs for his profit, the Mongol puts his only hope of fortune in his bravery. As a merchant trusts in his stuffs for profit, the Mongol puts his only hope of fortune in his bravery. Now, Genghis Khan had a few character traits that he really, really upheld and he thought were very important, and bravery was absolutely one of them. He recognized bravery in others. He sought to be brave himself. The bravery was important. Making the brave choice, acting when afraid, acting when it is difficult, is something that he highly valued. In fact, he said it's the place that the Mongol puts his only hope of fortune, his only hope of survival, of success. It's all dependent on his ability to make the brave choice. Fortune favors the bold, right? Audacity, audacity, audacity. Great military commanders, great successful men since the dawn of time have always talked about the importance of bravery. Bravery takes a lot of forms, right? Sometimes it's doing things that are difficult. Sometimes it's overcoming fear. Sometimes it's moving forward and writing that piece of copy, even though you're kind of deep down worried you won't be able to make it work. It's getting up and moving despite fear, and upon it rests all of your fortune, right? Copywriters, we're kind of bridging the line between merchants and Mongols here, right? Merchants put trust in the stuffs for profits. As a copywriter, you put a lot of your trust in the actual work that you do, but it's based on your bravery. Your ability to write well is based on bravery. It's based on overcoming fear and attempting new things and innovating. It's absolutely important that you act as a brave man. Do the brave thing. A lot of you guys bring life situations to me where you're struggling between balancing friends who play video games in your life and all this stuff, right? And there's difficult choices ahead of you, right? There's the opportunity there, and deep down, you've got to make the brave choice, and you've got to sacrifice this thing or increase this thing or try this one thing or jump into this new opportunity. You know what you need to do, but you're scared, right? You have to embrace bravery because it's the only hope of your fortune. Here's another good one. Genghis Khan said, "What shall be said of a man who will make a promise at dawn and break it at nightfall?" So he was extremely careful with his word. If he said something, he did it, right? If he said that he was going to do something, he made a promise to one of his guys, he fulfilled that promise to the letter, right? He was extremely careful. He never said something and never did it, right? If he said he was going to conquer a country, he did. If he said he was going to give someone a gift, he did. No matter what, and he did this to himself, right? Not only did he fulfill the things he said to other people, but he fulfilled the promises he made to himself. It was extremely important. Imagine, like, he couldn't read. Genghis Khan never learned how to read, right? And the Mongol people never learned how to read, but they knew how to read people, right? They knew how to work with people. And he understood that all a man really has is his word, his ability to fulfill his promises. And that gives you power, right? When you become the man that does what you say you're going to do, not only do other people respect you and listen to you and you can influence other people, but you respect yourself. You're able to get a sort of superpower from this, right? Andrew talks about this all the time, right? Being a sayer, right? It's doing what you say you're going to do gives you a power. It gives you unlimited motivation. If you make a list of things that you're going to do in a day, you got to do them. And you tell yourself you're going to do them, you actually make sure you do them. That means you're going to be careful. You're not going to say you're going to do things you can't do, right? You're going to make crazy, stupid, bold promises yet that you can't keep. You're going to make promises with yourself and you're going to keep them. If you do this, it gives you a strength of character that allows you to win. It allows you to step up and defeat opponents and accomplish great things, right? Most people, they talk stuff, but they don't actually achieve it. They don't actually trust their own ability to achieve what they say they're going to achieve. If you make a habit of only saying things that you're going to do and only doing things and doing the things that you say, you will have a strength of character that allows you to defeat other men and be a more successful copywriter. Let's go on to the next line. This one's connected to it. The merit of an action is in finishing it to the end. This is probably one of my favorite Genghis Khan quotes. The merit of an action is in finishing it to the end. Now, if a regular person said this, hey, don't quit, do all the things you say you're going to do, finish to the end, it makes sense. But it has a different level of impact when Genghis Khan says it, because he applied that to the scale of conquering entire empires, like other empires and nations. The merit of an action is in finishing it to the end. It wasn't just enough to just go and do things, right? And perform actions. He was about getting something done, finishing it, actually achieving the goal, right? Not just doing some of it or attempting, trying. The merit of an action is in finishing it to the end. That's way cooler than the Yoda do or do not, there is no try. The merit of an action is in finishing it to the end. You only get the reward that you're looking for when you finish something completely, when you utterly check the item off. Binary, done. That's a different approach than most people take. Most people don't take the I'm going to sit here and do this until it gets done. There's a really big marketer, or a guy that's done some amazing things with webinars and stuff, and he's really famous for saying, I'm not going to get up out of my chair. I will not allow myself to get out of my chair until I have launched this product, right? That I won't get up to go to use the bathroom. I won't get up to go to sleep. I'm going to sit on this chair until I am done, right? There is a difference in your ability to execute if you give yourself this, I am going to do this and I won't stop until I'm done. That gives you a power over other people who just half-heartedly attempt things. This is different. This is a different way of thinking. This is a different way of acting. This is a different way of setting a to-do list than your average person. I'm going to say I'm going to do something. I'm going to follow through. I'm going to make it happen, right? And I'm not going to stop until it's finished. The only benefit comes when it's done. There's no benefit from half-heartedly doing anything. The only benefit comes from doing it. This is one of the reasons why I've given you guys a daily checklist. I want you guys to approach the situation, your day like this. I want you guys to look at the daily checklist. You might need to adapt it, right? Some of you were worried about doing 20 outreaches if you haven't built a free value. I have some information on how to do that more quickly and get that done in FAQs. But if you need to change the number of reach, drop it down to 10 because you're doing hyper-personalized. I don't care. As long as you have a set number of outreaches you're doing every day, that's what matters most. But you need to look at the daily checklist. Tell yourself, I'm not going to stop until I'm done. I'm going to do all of these things to completion. I'm going to finish it because the merit of the work that I'm doing here is in finishing it to the end. It's a shift. It's a perspective shift. We're here to finish things all the way to the end. No half-hearted, no trying, doing things, accomplishing something. I hope you guys are seeing this. These ideas, they combine together to create a force of will that allows you to conquer countries, right? This is what Genghis Khan did. He conquered China. He conquered entire empires because he had this force of will, and he acted in such a way that made him an upright and powerful individual, right? He saw himself as someone who had earned God's favor because he was the best man, right? He did what he said he was going to do. He had the strongest character. He worked the hardest. He viewed himself as by right this man who had built himself into a man who deserved and was capable of holding this level of responsibility. Because as he grew his empire, he viewed an empire as like a responsibility. It's up to you to protect your subjects, to guide your subject and lead your subjects. And that was based on your strength of character and your merits and your abilities. That's how he viewed it. When the old emperor of China died and the new emperor was put on the throne, a man who had lived his life in decadence, a weak man, Wai Wang, a man who sat around and wrote poetry all the time. That's what he did, right? He was appointed the emperor of China. They sent out messengers to all the vassals of China. And technically, Mongolia was a vassal of China at the time. They sent a guy to Genghis Khan, and Genghis Khan had an interesting thing to say, right? So he didn't kneel down and take the decree. He stood up, he took it, he took the thing. He asked the guy what it said because he couldn't read, right? Didn't need to. Genghis Khan didn't need to know how to read, and he conquered the world. That tells you something about the importance of books. Which, let me hit on that really quick. Genghis Khan, throughout his life, would often go to a bare mountaintop nearby and think. He would just go and think. He would take some time to OODA loop through his life and analyze things and try and understand things for himself. He was able to break free of some of the limitations of the Mongol tribes' thinking. He was able to do things that he didn't think were possible because he was able to free his mind and think for himself. Perspicacity, taking time to think for yourself, OODA looping, and actively trying to understand the why of why things are happening was a key characteristic of Genghis Khan. It's something I teach you guys to do inside of this campus. It's important to regularly take time to step back, like we did this last weekend, and just think, plan, come up with a new creative solution, and attack. He did this all the time. Anyways, so the Emperor of China, new Emperor of China, he sends this guy, so the vassal comes, gives Genghis Khan the thing. He reads it, and I'm gonna pull it up. Let me see if I can actually find the quote. That's not it, because I didn't write this one down before. I didn't think I was going to share this one because I've shared it before, but I'm going to share it now. Let's see if I can find it. This is a good one. I'm gonna read the whole story. So instead of inclining his head towards the south, the Khan spat. I thought the son of heaven would be an extraordinary man, but an imbecile like Wai Wang is unworthy a throne. Why should I humiliate myself before him? Right. So they said, hey, this guy has been appointed the king of China, the emperor of China. And he's like, no. If you're going to be the man who's in charge and ruling this great country of the great empire of China, you should be an extraordinary man. A man who has worked hard and earned himself and built himself into a strong, capable man who is worthy of this domain. Why would I, Genghis Khan, the man who has worked hard and who has escaped death since I was 13, kept my word always, built strong relationships with men, worked hard. Why should I ever humiliate myself to a man like Wai Wang? And then he got on his horse and he rode off. He rode off to that bare mountaintop that I told you about. He got up there. He sat there for a couple hours. He came back down, got his war chiefs together and said, hey, guys, we're marching on China. And this is the reply he sent back to Wai Wang. Our dominion is now so well ordered that we can visit Cathay. Is the dominion of the Golden Khan so well ordered that he can receive us? And so basically he's saying, I have done what I need to do. I have covered my bases. I have actually worked. I have kept my word. I have built myself into this stature. Have you done the same? I'm coming to meet you. Are you so well ordered that you can meet me? Right. Most of you guys know there are fundamentals in copywriting. There are fundamental skills you have to develop. Right. It's up to you to develop those skills. You need to keep your house well ordered. Your skills, your capabilities, your lifestyle, your habits, they need to be well ordered, because if you are well ordered, you can meet any opposing challenge, right? Oh, you got a giant funnel rebuild for a company. You should be capable of doing that because your house is so well ordered. Genghis Khan understood this, and this is how he approached it. He marched. Eventually, they conquered China. It took him 5 years. It took him 5 years to conquer China. And eventually, he conquered China because of the mental failings and cowardice of that Emperor Wai Wang. Genghis Khan was a greater man, a greater general, and he broke Wai Wang's mind because of the work he had put in to build himself and the confidence he had in his ability. That's the kind of ego that allowed Genghis Khan to win. He defeated China, and there was a period of a few years where he was organizing the empire, and things were kind of peaceful. And he asked, one day he was sitting in his court, and he asked one of his fellow. I'm going to read the story too, because this is a good one. He asked the guys in his pavilion what they thought was best, what brought the greatest happiness in life. And here's what one of the guys responded. He said, the open steppe, a clear day, and a swift horse under you, and a falcon on your wrist to start up here. So he's like, the best thing, the thing that brings the most happiness is just riding through the steppe. You got your horse, fine horse, clear day, got your falcon, you're hunting, basically recreation, right? That's the best. That's the best thing that brings the most happiness in this world. And Genghis Khan certainly enjoyed those things. He had over 1,000 eagles. He hunted. He enjoyed that life. But he said his reply is indicative. It shows where his priorities truly were and why he was able to win where others weren't. Right? He said, nay, to crush your enemies, to see them fall at your feet, to take their horses and goods and hear the lamentation of their women, that is best. Now, it's famously quoted in Conan the Barbarian, right? That Conan say that line. But he said, no. Pleasure, enjoying things, that's fun and all, but he said, basically, I get the greatest fulfillment by winning in a competitive environment. I get the greatest fulfillment in defeating enemies, right? Now, we don't live in a world where it is encouraged to do the same actions that Genghis Khan did, right? Military conquest is sort of not accessible or recommended for you at this stage of your life, or really in any stage. But competition, but overcoming obstacles, overcoming things in yourself, overcoming obstacles in the outside world. This is where the greatest fulfillment in life comes from. It's not pleasure. I mean, his friend might have said, hey, playing a good video game is the greatest thing in life. And he's like, no. winning in real life, winning and defeating other people in real life, that is the best. If you can develop a hunger for winning and a hate for losing, it can drive you to do great things. It can drive you to focus and chase the feeling of conquest and winning. And that alone will help you achieve way more than the guy who lives for pleasure, right? Work, consume, die. That's what most people do. They live so they can watch Netflix shows, and they live so they can play their video games. They work as hard as they need to so they can survive, eat their pizza, and play video games. And that's how they live their life. They chase pleasure. And I'm telling you that there's a greater fulfillment and greater pleasure that comes from overcoming difficult challenges, from competing and winning. That's where things start to get fun. That's where you start to develop. That's a more powerful drive. These are all some things about how Genghis Khan thought. These are all some things about how he approached his life that allowed him to go on and conquer China. They accidentally conquered Korea. He conquered a vast amount of lands. You've seen that giant red map. One man inspired thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to work with him, and he accomplished that greater thing because of the character that he built himself, the way that he viewed himself, the beliefs that he had about the world, and the actions he took. He was a man who believed in being upright, a man who believed in doing the difficult thing, a man who believed in holding his word and being a man of strong character, a man who believed in doing what he said he was going to do, doing difficult things, and he chased the feeling of conquest. He chased the feeling of overcoming difficult things, defeating other men, right? That's what he chased. And it's what allowed him to accomplish so much more. He had this feeling of divine purpose. It gave him an ability to do more. Now, guys, you guys are all out there. You're copywriting. You're learning these skills. You're raising yourself from wherever you are to a higher state. It's a difficult transition, right? It is an obstacle. You're climbing a huge mountain. If you adopt these beliefs, if you start to hold yourself to your word, if you start to understand that the merit of an action is in finishing it to the end, if you hold yourself to do the things you say you're going to do, if you are honorable and upright, if you lead with value, if you understand the importance of collaborating with others, if you seek out difficulty and reject the cheap dopamine, reject the cheap pleasures of this world, and instead chase fulfillment and overcoming of challenges, you're going to win. You're going to do so much more than your average man. I can tell you the real reason why some students, most of the students who don't succeed in this program, they fail because their characters are weak. They fail because they don't work hard and apply the things that are taught here. Very, very few, if any, fail because of any other reason. That's really, truly it. Now, it's my job here, and it's up to me to inspire and guide you and trigger and spark these feelings inside of you and help you rise to the occasion. But it all depends on your ability to manage your character, manage your time, to work hard, to hold yourself to a higher standard and embrace difficulty. If you do that, if you follow the principles I teach, you're going to win. It's guaranteed. There's no likelihood involved here. If you follow the principles I teach, you will win. And you have to adopt these characteristics. You have to adopt these ideas. They've helped me significantly. Right? I've adopted them before I learned them from Genghis Khan, and I've supercharged them after I learned more about Genghis Khan. I'm telling you guys, there is something in that, the things that I share with you, that gives you a power that most men can never imagine. I've seen it in my life. I've seen it in the life of other people who have applied these principles, and I want to see it in your life, right? I want you guys to all think about these things. All of you who are listening, I want you to take some time right now, and in the chat, I want you to write down one thing that you're going to apply from what I talked about. Like there's going to be a new habit or a new principle or something that I've talked about today that I want you guys to think about how you can apply. Just take a few seconds, write down one sentence, something that you're going to do as a result of what you learned in today's call. Just put it in the chat. I'll read a few of them out here in a second. I'm curious to see what you guys say. This is one of the reasons why I initiated that 7-day rectangle challenge yesterday, where for 7 days, you keep your phone completely out of your office or the workspace while you work in it. Keep it in another room. You put it in a different place and you keep it away so that you can focus and do your work. You use it as little as possible. This is part of that rejecting difficulty. I think smartphones breed, like that first quote, how temples and monasteries breed weakness of character. I think smartphones and consuming you're spending your time pouring it into that little tiny rectangle, I think consumes and breeds mildness of character. That's one of the challenges I want you guys to think about is instead of chasing those cheap pleasures, you chase difficulty. Let's take a look and see what you guys are saying here. Sticking to my word, stay focused, hold myself to a higher standard, finish daily checklist. I'll do personal outreach to 5 people every day. You guys are now speaking things into existence. You're saying the things you have now made a promise at dawn, right? You've made a promise at dawn, and I want you to keep it today. I want you to do the things that you say you're going to do. You guys have all said, Think lofty goals, hold myself accountable, embrace. Yeah, you guys are all saying things. You guys are making commitments. You guys are saying things that you're going to do. Now go and hold yourself to those things. Go actually live up to the words that you speak, and you'll feel a greater sense of strength. I'm telling you guys, there's a lot to be taken from this call. If you go back and re-listen to this, I'm sure you gain more insight, and you'll have additional things that you can apply. Go and apply these things today. Make these character shifts because they're going to give you the ability to push forward and win where other mere mortals can't imagine. It's been a good call, guys. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, I'll be in the chats answering questions. We will talk there. It's been a good call. I'll talk with you guys tomorrow.